Live from Television City in Hollywood.
Oh, come
This
on.
is the Red Skilton Show.
Oh. Lon's been very sentimental about TV stuff this week.
Live from the Ed Sullivan Studio. This is the Ed Sullivan Show.
No, it isn't.
Your show of shows. No, that's it.
See,
Hello, dear. Well,
See, fooling around will get you in trouble.
I just spilled my whole brilliant lecture there. So,
I helped him pick it up.
yes, I'm going to turn it over now. Here's Gracie.
Good morning. How's your week been? I've been, on the weekend I repotted a 6-foot, 55-year-old friendly cactus.
I posted a picture of it too on
okay.
Facebook.
Oh, it's anyway, it's needed a new pot. It was very heavy, and so to pick it up, I had to wear a sweatshirt. And I know you're dying to hear this. A sweatshirt and another sweatshirt over my shoulders, and it's extremely heavy. And to get it up, and I got a new pot at a garage sale to put it in. And anyway,
You caressed a 6-foot cactus.
I did, but we made a deal with each other that we'd try not to hurt each other, although I did break off about an 8-foot limb of it because it has many arms. And it didn't, I got like an 1/8 of an inch minuscule scratch, barely, that's all. So anyway, I guess the deal worked, but the strength to do it, I must have just,
The cactus goddess.
I must have been channeled. Yes, he says channeled the Holy Spirit. Because
It was a Pentecostal move.
there was no way I could have lifted that cactus. It's very heavy. Anyway, so I've been repotting cactus this weekend, and realizing I have lots of other plants that need I'm talking about preparing for winter, and I have lots of. And because it's 55 years old, it's my oldest plant.
I got it for when it was 3 inches tall. I bought it at Builder's Emporium. I brought it home.
And sat on the kitchen table in a
We were
kitchen
very
that I
poor.
painted orange.
Yeah.
Because, it was 1971. That's my only excuse. And it was ugly before that. It was a little stranger after that. But anyway, but I was thinking, I have lots of plants that are my friends. I mean, they're just not plants. I mean, I have seeds of plants that I've had for decades. I have cuttings of plants where I go out and say, I remember your mother. I know that I don't care if it's crazy.
The farm Christmas cactus, right? Where you were born?
Oh, I have, I have a Christmas cactus from the farm when I was born in 1948. I guess that's my oldest plant. Only it's cuttings of my oldest plant. Anyway, so treasure your old friends. Don't lose touch with them.
You have an astral warehouse, don't you?
Never mind.
You don't want to share about your
No.
astral warehouse.
They already know I'm crazy enough. Treasure your old friends and value what's important with them. The fact that you can converse with them. Yes, plants, don't worry about it. And people too. Because I read something this week about that the ego, which is what in this definition is just that which keeps you separate from yourself, God, and everyone else. Your ego focuses only on errors. Now, I have a shark mind. I was an inspector at a dental needle factory for 6 months, my first job. And
She's severely judgmental.
Well, I'm not. I can just pick out errors.
Painfully judgmental.
Only if you can't take it. But I can weed a yard. I mean, I weed yards by I see the perfection in everyone, and I'm disappointed when they don't live up to it.
There you go.
It's like, I'm not arguing with you. I'm trying to tell you how I'm right. No, I can weed a yard and constantly during the year and find the weeds and pull them out by hand because I just have an eye to do that. So it's not that I am really focusing on but I'll say the ego only focuses on the errors and ignores truth. Now it's okay to notice the errors and try to, take care of it, but don't just see the errors and forget the truth, which is pretty much perfection. And I often do that with sweet Lon. I just focus on the errors, which are so minuscule, but irritating, like being pecked to death by ducks. But
okay.
I ignore the truth of how wonderful he is, and we kind of do that with a lot of our old friends too, because we have things that have happened between us. So cherish your old friends this week. That's my message.
Okay, you'll leave that with us today?
Mm-hmm. I'm going to go now.
Okay.
So you change the camera around.
Well, I'll change the camera, roll up the window because the big trucks are here to unload and make a bunch of noise. See? Okay, I'm going to say good night, Gracie.
Good night, Gracie. Good night, Lon.
There I am. Okay. Please roll your window down all the way so I'm going to roll mine up for the sound.
Oh, it doesn't come in this window?
No, but I like to breathe. Okay. Well, that was very wise. I think that's good enough for the show. I'm just going to... That's a tough act to follow, I tell you. Anyway, I was, what? What are you looking for?
Mask.
What?
Mask. Oh, I've got it on my wrist.
Okay.
Oh, duh.
Well, welcome to Tuesday, Parking Lot Tuesday. Well, I can roll this down until he starts to make noise there. And we are at the Sprouts parking lot here in beautiful Land Park area of Sacramento. And I want to talk a bit about the 28th degree of the Scottish Rite. Let's see here, maybe I can actually show you something. Now, I know everybody's not a Scottish Rite Mason. I know that everybody's not a Mason. I know that a lot of people don't give a damn about the Masons. And but I want to show you something. Okay, well, I guess I'll use this one. Now, in the United States, there's all sorts of kinds of Masons. In the United States, all Masons start off with just the 3 degrees, the entered apprentice, the fellow craft, and the master mason. And that's as high as you can go. Any other kind of concordant body or anything else is like a move laterally. Okay. And there's 2 kinds of those that are popular in the United States. And one is here called the York Rite. And the other that's popular in the United States is called the Scottish Rite. Now, I chose, after I became a Master Mason 25 years ago, or a little more, to go to the Scottish Rite way, because that's My dad was a Scottish Rite Mason, and I joined his old Blue Lodge, and then I joined his Scottish Rite body. And there's hunks of degrees. There's 32 degrees. 33rd is a honorary degree. There's 32 degrees, and they're broken up into 4 main sections: the Lodge of Perfection, the Council of the Princes of Jerusalem, the Chapter Rose Croix, or Croix, and the Consistory. And that's with the northern jurisdiction anyway. And the degree I want to talk about today is not so much, well, anyway, the 28th degree, let's see here, 28th degree, Knight of the Sun, deals overtly with Kabbalah. Okay. Now, Masonry doesn't teach Kabbalah. It doesn't teach alchemy. It doesn't teach mystic Christianity. It doesn't teach anything like that. Okay, it doesn't teach. It provides lessons, but it doesn't. It can't be tied down to, this is the philosophy of Masonry, or this is the religion of Masonry. Nah, you avoid that. When you get to be a 32nd degree Mason, back in my father's day, Masons were given a book called Morals and Dogma by Albert Pike. It's a very thick book. It's a very scholarly book. It's a difficult book to read, and most American Scottish Rite 32nd degrees, like Mother, they had Morals and Dogma, and perhaps they tried to thumb through it, but when they discovered it wasn't what they thought. As a matter of fact, it was postgraduate liberal arts education in esoteric religions, philosophy. It's awesome, but it's really hard to read. And most Morals and Dogmas rested on a Mason's library shelf and was never read. Now, in recent years, or last probably 20, 25 years or so, 32nd degree Masons get this book. It's called A Bridge to Light, and it's by Rex R. Hutchinson, and it's absolutely excellent. It's very, very good, and it actually provides a very good foundation of all your 32 degrees of the Scottish Rite, and puts things in perspective. I'm going to now, for the 28th degree, when they work the 28th degree in my Scottish Rite body, which is Long Beach Scottish Rite bodies in Long Beach, California. For several years after I joined the Scottish Rite, I was invited to deliver about a 15-minute lecture, classroom-type lecture, before the degrees were confirmed. So you sort of get a little education before every degree, so the degree makes a little more sense to you. And in Long Beach, they do them awesomely well, and other places around the country, I understand. It's not these degrees are not something that you personally walk through yourself and get blindfolded yourself, and but they are like drama, mystery plays that take place in a very elaborate stage setting with wonderful lighting and flies and backdrops and so it looks like you're in the pyramids of Egypt, or it looks like you're in Babylon, or it looks like you're in King Solomon's temple. It really looks great, very elaborate and expensive stuff, and it's awesome. It's just awesome, and you do take oaths, and you do get things conferred, and every once in a while you actually walk up on stage and do stuff. But mostly it's something you absorb while seated comfortably in a theater. But here are the duties of a Knight of the Sun or Prince Adept. The duties are: be a lover of wisdom. Be faithful to the promises you made within Masonry. Okay, every degree has you're reminded of a specific duty. Now I know that sounds corny. Be good to your mother. Wash your hands before eating. Okay? But there's more to it than that. But here the simple duties are: be a lover of wisdom. Be faithful to the promises you made within Masonry. Here are the lessons. Nature reveals a power and wisdom and continually points to God. Next lesson is: the visible is the manifestation of the invisible. Next lesson: in the universe, two opposite forces provide balance. Next lesson is: there is no death, only change. Next lesson: philosophy is a kind of journey, ever learning but never arriving at the ideal of truth. So philosophy is a journey. It doesn't presume to arrive at a crystallized truth. Then the final lesson is: the moral code of Masonry is more extensive than that of philosophy. Then here is a suggestion for self-reflection. Is the universe friendly to me? And here are the symbols, and these symbols are what attract people to Masonry and what suggests Masonry as being awesomely occult, spiritual, and mystical. The symbols of this degree are the Ancient of Days. Okay, that's that Rosicrucian symbol of the Ancient of Days, all seen in profile. Well, it's a mystical image. The Seal of Solomon, okay, the hexagram. The Seal of Solomon, which they call the macrocosm, just like in Kabbalah. The pentagram, the microcosm. And triangles of red, green, and white. And the number 7. Those are the important symbols of the degree. Pike, and I'm quoting Brother Hutchinson here. I hope he doesn't mind, because he's brilliant. Pike believed that certain ancient cultures possessed the truth that God had originally given to man. This is what Pike believed. Okay, remember, he's a 19th century guy. As such, they had a more accurate and comprehensive knowledge of the deity and his relationship to the universe and man than modern philosophies and religions. He referred to this knowledge as primitive religion, carrying a sense of primary, meaning first. This knowledge defied expression in ordinary language. Even to attempt it was dangerous because the use of adjectives ordinarily describing men when used to describe deity tend to lessen him. To transmute this knowledge, the ancients developed symbols. In time, the symbols also came to be the means to hide knowledge so that it would not be known by all. Initiations into the ancient mysteries were designed to transfer this knowledge to those worthy and capable of receiving it. Eventually, the symbols became corrupted, and the instruction associated with the symbols became lost. We are left with the fragments of the truth, veiled in that corrupted symbolism. Thus, we must sort through the symbols to find parallels among them. Then we must try to unveil these symbols to discover their great truths. Now, Pike wrote this: everything in the 28th degree and in the council, even the names and titles of the officers, is symbolical. These symbols do not explain themselves, and it will depend upon yourself whether we have said and shall say to you shall be an explanation of them, or only additional enigmas. Okay, the ceremony, 28th degree is a pretty simple ceremony. The officers, they all have the beautiful jewels and things like this. These are the apron and the jewels of the degree. That's awesome. And it's got a beautiful backdrop, reminiscent of nature itself. Fields, beautiful fields, blue sky, mountains in the background, things like that. It's really nice. But here's what I want to talk about: Kabbalah. They spell it with a K. The Kabbalists were concerned with the search for knowledge of the divine soul. Throughout the history of Jewish religious tradition, conflicts arose about the proper means of interpreting the scriptures. Some insisted on a literal interpretation, others an allegorical or symbolic one. Still others, an amicable spirit, suggested that both approaches were appropriate under certain circumstances. The Kabbalah was formulated by those who felt that the symbolic interpretation was to be preferred, and thus the teachings of the Kabbalah are illustrated by symbols and allegories. Okay, now, and that's sort of where Brother Lon picked up at his 10-minute lecture before the class went on to take their 28th degree. Now, I had just a whiteboard that I had drawn up, just a primitive tree of life on, like I do, every morning here. I always get an old envelope or something and draw you a tree of life. But I also prepared handouts that contained a chart of the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet with just their numerical value and their meaning, like Aleph, ox, and Daleth, door, and things like that. That was the handout. So this isn't very long, so don't worry. The Kabbalah. I had studied Kabbalah for over 25 years before I joined the Scottish Rite, and was privileged to audit all the degrees presented here in Long Beach. At the time, is one of the few places, Scottish Rite bodies in the country that did all of them. My familiarity with Kabbalistic concepts amplified my appreciation of the rituals, and I felt bad for some of the others in the class who were missing out on many symbolic treasures presented in each ritual. If you're lucky enough to have a morals and dogma with the digest, an index at the end, you will notice that there are no less than 65 direct references to Kabbalah. In addition to that, there are literally hundreds of additional references to Kabbalistic concepts, traditions, and buzzwords. Now, in the index to our Bridge to Light, okay, Brother Hutchinson's, we find 35 direct entries for Kabbalah, and the text is also filled with many Kabbalistic references. Obviously, the Kabbalah should be a subject of interest to Scottish Rite Masons. The Kabbalah is a huge subject, and we're obviously not going to learn very much in the 10 minutes or so we have tonight. But let's at least try to scratch a tiny bit of the surface. I'll talk fast, and I should be around afterwards to answer questions and try to lure you out into the parking lot to buy my book. I think at the time that was Chicken Kabbalah. Okay, what is Kabbalah? Let's start by learning what it is not. Kabbalah is not a religion. We often hear the Kabbalah referred to as Hebrew mysticism, which is accurate up to a point, but more than that, Kabbalah, like Freemasonry, is non-sectarian and opens her mysteries to sincere and diligent seekers of any and all religious persuasions. Kabbalah is not a belief system, although there are a number of Orthodox institutions that apply the tools of Kabbalistic thought to engage in exegesis upon various scriptures they hold sacred. Kabbalah is itself not a belief system. Rather, it is a way of looking at things. I'm going to roll up my window because the noise is going to start. Rather, it is a way of looking at things. It is a way of organizing the universe so neatly that we eventually can discover our own place in it. It's a way of connecting absolutely everything in the universe with absolutely everything else until eventually we achieve a level of consciousness in which we realize there is nothing left to connect. Kabbalah is not a book, but there are many Kabbalistic texts, including the key books of the Torah and Talmud and the New Testament. Kabbalistic traditions, and as Masons know, we know that tradition and history are sometimes two very different things. Kabbalistic tradition holds that these texts and many others, not so well known, were crafted by mystics possessed of profound understanding of the universe and the mysteries of human existence. At a time when writing was a mystery reserved for priests and royalty, they used poetry and parables to express thoughts that everyday language could not accommodate. They assembled the phrases with great art from individual words that conveyed an even deeper level of truth. Finally, each word was made up of unique symbolic letters, each of which revealed yet another story. A story so profound and abstract it could only be told and understood in the pure language of numbers and mathematics. These sages were full-time holy guys. They wrote this stuff for other full-time holy guys. And the tiny segment of every generation who would be equipped with the intelligence, the spiritual drive, and yes, the leisure time necessary to embark upon a lifelong quest for enlightenment. And I believe that Albert Pike expected Scottish Rite Masons to be among this elite category of seekers. On page 12 of A Bridge to Light, Hutchinson writes the following concerning Kabbalah. Quote, "The cycle of closeness to and distance from God experienced by the Hebrews found expression in the deeply symbolic mysticism that arose in medieval Judaism, of which origins the founders of this system sought to create a purely symbolic and primarily numerological expression of the relationship of deity to man. Even a name was given to distinguish the Kabbalistic concept of God from that of conventional Judaism, Ein Sof, the inexpressible, incomprehensible, ineffable, divine source of all things. Ein Sof roughly translates limitless nothing. It is one of the three levels of negative existence that the Kabbalists say preceded creation. In the language of modern physics, we could call it the negative singularity that preceded the Big Bang. Now that's pretty heavy stuff, and it's not easy to think about. It's also impossible to talk about using our normal day-to-day language. That's why we need another kind of language. And Brother Hutchins goes on to say, quote, "An essential element in the formation of this mystical theory was to effect an adequate means for the description of God within the limited framework of human language. This was accomplished by transcending the language through numerological symbolism. You'll regularly hear references made to the numerology of the Kabbalah in the rituals of the degrees of the Scottish Rite. I mean, all over, not just in the 28th degree. The most important point to remember is that the Hebrew letters were given number equivalents, and so every word was itself a number, the sum of the numerical value of its individual letters," unquote. I'm just briefly going to give you one example of how this is done. This is me talking again. Please take a look at your handout. That is the table of Hebrew letters. Here are the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. 5 of them appear differently when they are placed at the end of a word. You'll notice that each of them represents a number and has a specific meaning. If your name happens to be Al, like Al Turek, now Al Turek is one of my dear brothers for many years in both the Scottish Rite and Long Beach Lodge. So Al Turek was probably in the audience that night. If your name happens to be Al, and Al, if you're watching, hello. And your wonderful son, who's also, I believe, in the Scottish Rite. If your name happens to be Al, like Al Turek, it would be spelled Aleph Lamed. Aleph is 1 and means ox, and Lamed is 30 and means ox goad. I guess this means that Al is self-motivated. In Hebrew, Al is the root of the word God. And if you spell it backwards, L-A, it means not or nothing. Can you see the possibilities here? Also, AL is 31, which is a absolutely cool, wonderful prime number. 3 31s is 93. So, but anyway, another brief example is the Hebrew word for riches and power. It's spelled Dalet, Bet, Aleph, or DBA. These 3 letters add to the sacred number 7. If we spell DBA backwards, we get the word ABD, which means lost or ruined. While it doesn't take a rocket scientist to realize the opposite of riches and power is loss and ruin, the order and meaning of the individual Hebrew letters of these words also tells a simple but profound story. The word riches, DBA, suggests a door, Daleth or D, a door to a house, barn or enclosure, which is represented by the letter B, which opens to receive an ox, Aleph or A, and the ox being an ancient symbol of wealth. However, the word loss or ruin reverses the letters and suggested ox, A, of wealth, finds the barn's door, BD, and escapes. Or to put it bluntly, door plus barn plus ox equals good. Ox plus barn plus door, bad. So one is the wealth being captured in the container, and the other one is the riches in the container finding the door and splitting. We could play with this all night. Actually, we could play with this for the rest of our lives, but we've got a long night ahead. Let's finish up with what Brother Hutchins has to say in A Bridge to Light. Quote, as well, concise yet complex diagrams were created to explain the nature of the deity. Chief among these is called the Tree of Life, and I had a diagram of the Tree of Life up. This was a diagram variously designed to illustrate the 10 emanations from or manifestations of deity called Sephiroth. Let's take a look at the first diagram of the Tree of Life, the one with Ein Sof at the top. You'll notice that there are 10 circles, which are joined by 22 paths. The 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet will find a home on these 22 paths. But what are the 10 circles? Where did they come from? The 10 circles are called Sephiroth, which means roughly emanations. Just as there can be only one absolute deity, there is really only one real Sephiroth, the one at the top. The other 9 are just what we see when we look at the top Sephiroth with progressively darker sunglasses. Because we're made in the image of deity, the Tree of Life is also a map of ourselves. The 3 pillars are reminiscent of our 3 Masonic pillars of wisdom, strength, and beauty. The 10 Sephiroth also represent 10 levels of consciousness. Number 10 at the bottom is the most mundane and earthly, and number 1 at the top is the consciousness of the absolute, supreme deity. Why there are 10 Sephiroth is a long and interesting story, and here I'm looking at my watch, and has partially to do with the fact that we have 10 fingers. I'll have to wrap it up right now, and I can't think of a better way to do this than for us to hear from Albert Pike himself. Quote, one is filled with admiration on penetrating the sanctuary of the Kabbalah, at seeking a doctrine so logical, so simple, and at the same time so absolute. The necessary union of ideas and signs, the consecration of the most fundamental realities by the primitive characters, the trinity of words, letters, and numbers. A philosophy simple as the alphabet, profound and infinite as the word. Theorems more complex and luminous than those of Pythagoras. A theology summed up by counting on one's fingers. An infinite which can be held in the hollow of an infant's hand. 10 ciphers and 22 letters. a triangle, a square, a circle. These are the elements of the Kabbalah. They are the elementary principles of the written word, reflection of that spoken word that created the world. Thank you very much, and enjoy your degrees. Okay, I know that was a long excursion into the 28th degree of Freemasonry, and how one is at least encouraged and should be tantalized into opening up a study of Kabbalah oneself, if one is to appreciate the colorful glories of an esoteric system such as the Scottish Rite, the Golden Dawn, the OTO. Anyway, so that's it for today. I've gone way over, and I got other parking lots to go to today too, now that I think of it. Until tomorrow, continue to be good to yourself, be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law. Love under will.